Hi everyone, in today's video I want to show you some classic lighting techniques for one of my favourite film styles, noir. Film noir is defined by stylistic but simplistic black and white images with high contrast lighting, and film noir is an excellent starting point for filmmakers as it allows you to gain a fundamental grasp over lighting, contrast ratios and composition. Camera operators at the time were trying to emulate chiaroscuro, aiming to place more emphasis on shadows and lighting in an attempt to overcome the blandness of more traditional three-point lighting approaches. Now, noir came about through the budgetary constraints and the technology of the times and is often more nuanced in its compositional approach, relying on simple framing to create specific pockets of interest, and the intensity of the light source and placement draws the audience to a specific location. So let's take a look at some simple but effective lighting techniques which are a staple of the noir style. So first, I want to create the classic shot of a subject in a state of thought, and I want to frame it through blinds, a staple of the noir style. So first, I want to create some ambience and separation between the foreground and backdrop. So I've turned on a practical lamp on the back wall. This creates a pocket of light and adds contrast, which will balance the overall scene as we continue to expose the foreground, and this will fit nicely with the square framing. Next, we're turning on our main key. This is a 300x which has a reflector attached, and it's situated outside of the frame, behind me and to the right of my shoulder. This is being pointed at a white bounce board which is reflecting onto my face and producing a soft but distinct key, while still allowing a lot of contrast on my fill side. Its gradient is gradually transitioning from light to dark and produces a contrast ratio which still allows for some detail to come through across the shadows, for example on my eye. Now, I wanted this setup to be minimal with as fewer lights as possible, and I wanted the 300x to act as both a key and a rim light. To achieve this, I placed a black flag on a C-stand just in front and ahead of the key light. This allowed me to block a portion of the light across the fill side, and depending on how far forward or backward I lean, this will increase or decrease the spill of the rim across my hairline. This rim light helps create separation across the dominant shadows on the back wall and the fill side of my face, and helps to bring forward my body in combination with the key on the opposite side. It's a nice play of shadow and contrast. Finally, just outside of frame, I've got a Dado 150 with the lens projector spotlight attached, and this is focusing on a narrow beam of light in the direction of the glass. The aim of this light is to create some nice reflections from the water inside the glass, which will in turn create a subtle and mottled bounce across my face and body. The light's angle can be adjusted based on where the glass will be positioned during the sequence. Doing this also adds a subtle amount of fill across the shadow region of my face, just allowing a little bit of interaction with the light sources. I've also placed my body across one side of the frame and my eye line in between the blinds for composition, and ensured the blinds are white in colour as these reflect when the key light is turned on, and complements the darker background. To achieve the effect of water running down a window, I placed a Perspex panel behind the blinds and mounted this via a C-stand and Mathellini clamp. Once in place, I used a water bottle and sprayed the Perspex to create the dripping effect. Now, if I was outside, I would have liked to have used more water and used a hose pipe with an adjustable head to get more consistency and a different effect. But as a quick DIY setup, I'm pretty happy with how this turned out. For this second shot, we're going to keep our subject in the same location, but adjust the camera angle. So this time we're inside the building looking out, as opposed to outside the building looking in. For this shot, we again have a simple setup with very few light sources. The camera's axis is off to the side, pointing into the corner of the room, and we're framing with a medium close-up to make the shot feel more intimate, and the blinds are creating leading lines as they fall toward the corner. Our first light is placed on the outside of the window. This is a Dado 150 with the lens projector spotlight attached. It's placed at a certain distance and is focused on a certain point that the circle fills the window frame, and it appears as a sharp, hard light source. When pointed through the blinds, this will create hard cuts of light. We can adjust the width of these cuts by closing or opening the blinds, and how these fall across our face will be determined by the angle and height of our subject. My aim here was to ensure the eye closest to the camera was framed within one of the light cuts, as it provides nice framing and draws the audience to the subject's eyes. Finally, to add some depth and separation between the foreground and background, plus a hint of shadows with some shape, I placed a plant into the corner of the room and shined another Data 150 into it, this time with barn doors attached to control the light spill. Angling this light onto the wall in front of my body or behind my body will vary the contrast ratio and the foreground to background separation. And honestly, I'm not sure which shot I prefer more. My mind keeps switching between both. I like the greater separation in the first shot, but I love the deep black contrast of the second, in which the back of my body falls into the shadows on the left-hand side of frame, which juxtaposes the brightness on the right-hand side of frame. Now this is just personal preference, but I think I'm leaning more towards the second shot. Okay, for this third shot, I wanted to silhouette the subject and create a small pocket of light across the eye line. We've essentially moved the camera 180 degrees from our first shot in this video. And for the first light in this setup, we've again placed a Data 150 outside of frame, pointing through the blinds and onto my back, and this is creating the silhouette. Now, to create the cut of light across my eye line, I've used a Data 150 with barn doors and two black flags which are connected via C-stands, and these are staggered close to one another just ahead of the light. These can be adjusted via the C-stand arm and gobo head for different heights and different widths of light. The barn doors also allow additional blocking at the sides of the Data 150, which means I can concentrate the light into a specific area of the frame, meaning the light doesn't spread across the entire horizontal plane of the image. Finally, for our last shot, we have a wide frame, and I've got two 300x aperture lights shining through the blinds and angled in a certain way that they're not visible through the window. This is acting as a hard key light source, creating dramatic shadows and providing some nice Rembrandt lighting across my face. It also gives us an indication for the direction of light, and illuminates the blinds within the window to help balance the contrast ratio across the left and right hand side of frame. Next, we want to build out the mise-en-scène and highlight some areas of interest to build out the room. So for this, we've turned on a Data 150 with barn doors pointing at the side table. This helps illuminate the glass and lampshade. Next, to add some depth and separation to the background, I wanted to make the painting more visible. So again, I've used a Data 150, but this time with the spotlight lens projector attachment. And this allows me to zone in on that specific area of the frame. And I've used the dimmer switch on the dado to ensure the light source isn't overpowering or overly dominant. To give the appearance that the side table illumination is coming from a practical source, we'll also turn on the banker's light. This will give a nice soft diffusion to the lamp and add additional light to the overall scene. At the same time, I've also placed a Data 150 on an apple box with a baby pin on the floor behind the chair, and this is pointing upwards onto the plant to help cast some shadows while also a backlight for separation. Noir grips and pulls the audience into a story like no other style can emulate. During its period, it challenged the audience's consciousness on a state of play for which many may have feared but never seen. While in modern times it draws on a collective Mandela effect of nostalgia for a time period in which many of us never existed in, but have an almost ingrained characterization of. And as noir ages, it's evolved and changed with the Zeitgeist, continuing to challenge an audience's perception across specific topics and genres. Cheers for watching, keep being creative, and I'll see you soon.